Ayan, good afternoon. So we'll just what do we do? We'll clean up no bits of our code because currently everything in our code is in player controller here, right? Everything is here, rigid body, animator. Well, we separated players effects, but most of the things, particle effects, is also here, no? Sa player controller. So what we'll do today is we'll separate the scripts, no? Tapos for uh, reset, I think reset is also here. We already no. So reset is also here sa player controller, so we have to separate that into a separate game object as well. Um, Spawner, for the obstacle spawner, we're still using invoke repeating here. But we'll change this to a more advanced coroutine instead of invoke repeating here because coroutine is much more. It's a more powerful function or a tool instead of invoke repeating. Anyway, sige, let's check up on our progress. Anyway, okay, so currently it looks like this, right? And then it spawns some things. If you bump into something, resets, right? Okay. Anyway, if we look at our spawner right now, so obstacle spawner, so the code attached here is the obstacle spawner, this one, and it what it does is it invokes repeating. No, with invoke repeating, however, medyo rigid siya, in which this spawn interval is not really changed, right? What we'll do here is we'll make a coroutine. So coroutine is sort of like if you've done ComSci 125 na, it's like a parallel processing. So medyo multi-threaded siya, right? For that, we'll create another function here. No? We'll comment this out for now. See invoke repeating. And then what we'll do here is create another function. Pero ang return type niya here is I enumerator. So this is specific no for coroutines. Private I enumerator say spawn ob, uh, obstacles. Okay? Obstacles. So tapos here we'll do what we kind of do sa invoke repeating. The first thing we'll do is wait for time to spawn, right? Or wait time to spawn, and then we'll do repeat spawn spawn time. Or every spawn interval we will spawn um, an object. Okay, so for coroutines, we can make delays, no? So coroutines, whenever it starts or whenever you want the coroutine to pause or you want the coroutine to wait. For this, okay, IntelliSense is already suggesting it. So for coroutines, we have this no return statement, yield return, and then it will return wait for seconds, new wait for seconds object here. Tapos ang input for wait for seconds na object is or the constructor here is the amount of time you are willing to wait. So in this case, we are waiting time to spawn, right? And then after this, every time after the interval, we will spawn a new one. Okay, so we could do a while loop here. I'll just say while true. Okay, and then we'll call spawn object, and then we will wait here again now. So we yield return. So instead of null, we'll wait for seconds. Okay, wait for seconds. Instead of time to spawn here, spawn interval. Okay, so the behavior of this is just similar to here, so invoke repeating, right? In which we will wait for time to spawn seconds, right? At the very start. Oh, sorry. We should call this coroutine here to start. Okay, so we'll call this with the function or the method start coroutine. We'll pass in the name of the function as a string, and then there. If our function, however, for example, may katabi, or we have like a float time to spawn here. For example, lang, no? If we have a float time to spawn here, if we want to pass a parameter, we could pass it here. So method name and then parameters if your function has parameters. Okay, but if we don't have parameters, then we could just leave that as is. Start the coroutine there, and then yeah, basically it's going to be the same thing. So if we go back to our um, game here, it should be the same thing. It still spawns the logs now every spawn interval. I think you set it at 2. Every 2 seconds it spawns another. Okay. If you want to add sort of like randomization or random things in your game or random spawn interval, for example, I'll create a randomizer here. Float a random delay, for example. Um, and then we could sort of add a little bit of randomness sa spawn interval stuff. Sa coroutine, we can't do that because once we set the spawn interval, ano na siya for good, right? But for coroutines, we can sort of change that. So we could do float here, random spawn interval equals. So we'll take the spawn interval and then we'll add sort of like a random delay here. Random delay, so random dot range, sorry. Let's say from 0 to random delay. What was it? Random delay. Okay. So now our spawn interval, instead of just spawn interval siya, pwede siya may random delay. So may additional siya na, let's say, it could be from 3 seconds to 4 seconds, for example. So there's a bit of randomness here. So instead of the spawn interval here, I'll do random spawn interval instead. So ma-add lang kita. So I guess we don't need the parentheses here. Really? Okay. So it's just the spawn interval and then we'll just add some random delay here. Going back to the script, ang spawn interval ta is 3 seconds. Tapos we could add maybe a random delay of, well, 2. So our random spawn interval ranges from 3 seconds up all the way up to 5 seconds. Something like this. So you can do this with coroutines, no? And if you have other things like you want something na ang processing niya is outside of um, is in another thread, for example, you could do or you could use some coroutines here as well. Okay. Your coroutine acts independently sa inyong update. So if you have another thing there that you want to act independently sa update, so there, medyo randomized siya. Sometimes it spawns at 5 seconds, sometimes 3, sometimes it spawns shorter, sometimes not. Yeah, so medyo randomized siya. So you can add a bit of randomization in your spawn interval. Like so. There are also things, no? Ang usual here is we yield return, wait for seconds, depending on how much delay you want sa coroutine nga. But sometimes you would see or you would use yield return null. If you see this, yield return null, this is basically saying wait until the next frame, right? So if you don't want to wait for a specific amount of seconds, milliseconds, whatever, you could do yield return null. This simply waits for the next frame, okay? Unreachable code. So we'll just delete this. Anyway, so we'll do our spawn obstacles or object spawner like this. Naka-coroutine na siya instead of invoke repeating. So we could be a little flexible with our spawn interval here. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Okay, let's look at some more of our code. So currently our code here, sub-layer controller controls the rigid body. Well, we'll leave the rigid body here, but it controls the animator. Tapos this one, we separated it into another script. So that's fine for now. It also controls these two variables, is on ground and is alive, but we will also separate this later on. We also have the particle system is also in player controller, so there are so many things going on here already. So we put it here, no? Sa jump, so we do is on ground falls, particle stop, play jump SFX. So we do sort of everything here. Tapos collisions also handled here. Aside from that, reset scene is also handled here sa player controller. That's not really good game design because we don't want to attach its player ta. We want to have a separate entity that controls the scenes. So we could do a scene manager here or sort of like a game controller. Na empty object lang siya. So persistent lang siya sa scene. So I'll create an empty game object here. I'll name it game controller. And then sa tags, actually there is another tag here, game controller. So we could do that. Tapos, I'll just add a script here. I'll create a script, scene, reset scene, like so. So I'll create a new script, reset scene, and then I'll add it to our game controller. So what this does, I'll just add a wala kita starter update. I will just copy the reset scene here, but instead of private, we will make it public so we can access it in another um, object. No, it needs an import scene management here. There. So public void reset scene. There's an error because well there is another named like so, but we could remove it here now. Tapos, instead of calling reset scene here, we'll do reset scene. I'll just do this for now. Now we'll change this later. Instead of this, we'll get the game controller. No? So we could do game object dot find objects with tag sorry object with tag find game object with tag. The tag was game controller, and then we'll get the component game controller reset scene, right? Reset scene, and then we'll do this. This is called null propagation. Now, the question mark is called null propagation. So it simply checks if this component is null or not. If it is not null, then it will continue with whatever you're trying to do. So in this case, reset scene. But if it is null, hindi na siya mag-continue with reset scene here. So instead of doing the reset scene sa player, we'll reset it here. Oh, what's happening here? Member names cannot be the same as their... sorry. Reset. I'll say reset current scene. Okay. There. Anyway. So now we transferred it to another game object na wala na siya kay player, but the call is still from here. But anyway, sige lang. It's better that way since hindi na si player mismo ang ma-reset ang scene. No? It's the game object that it's trying to do or trying to call, game controller in this case, that will do it for us. Okay, anyway, let's separate the things here sa player controller. Okay, so what are the things here sa current controller that we can separate? We can separate the animator, right? Since we want this to be in another script, still in the same game object, but we want another script to manage the animator. SFX we already did change it or moved it somewhere. States like this will also separate this in another script, as well as the particle system will also separate this. I will also separate collision. So what is left sa player controller is just the jump button, no? And whenever it jumps, well, we'll just do things here. Add force, tapos still will play some sound effects and particles. Okay? Sige, let's do first states. We'll remove is on ground and is alive from player controller and we'll transfer it in another state or in another script. Sige, I'll do another script here and then C# script. I'll name it player states. So this one, I'll just player states. Let's edit this. Don't really need start and update here, so I can remove that. And then we have private, what was it? Is on ground, right? Is on ground. Wait, let me check. So we have is on ground and is alive here. Okay. First to true. And then we'll just provide getters and setters. So sa C sharp, the getters and setters, we don't really have to implicitly create a function. You could do it like this, where you have a public and then bool. So for example, is alive, right? Is alive. Bool is alive. And then may lang kita like this. And then getter and setter. Oh, wait. That? No, no. Okay, there. So for get, we could just return is alive. And then for set, we could just do is alive equals whatever value that we set, no, sa is alive. Naka-insert ba ako? Insert here. Okay. Naka-insert ako. Oh no. How do I turn this off? Wait lang. Oops. No. That's trouble. Wait lang. I haven't done this. There. Okay. No, 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 no. Sorry. Like this. There. Okay. Okay. So it's alive here. Is alive equals whatever value is alive is whatever value that we set here. So later we'll see how it is used, no? And we'll do one for is on ground as well. So this one is on ground. And then is on ground. For getter, we just return is on ground. For setter, then just the value. Okay? So sa player controller, instead of having is on ground and is alive here, we'll remove that. And then we'll create a private reference here, private player states. And I'll name it states. Okay? So sa states, we'll get the reference for this. Same with the other components. States is get component, player states. Okay? And instead of is on ground here, we could do states dot is on ground with capital I, right? So that's essentially naka-getter na siya. Okay? And then states dot is on ground here. Okay, is alive. Is alive and is on ground. For the setter, we could just do states dot is on ground equals false, like that. That's essentially a setter already. And here as well. Okay, anyway, there. Anything else we need here? Wala naman siya. Okay, so for now, that's it. We've separated the states. Next thing we'll do is we'll separate the collisions. Okay, we'll separate the collisions. So we'll create another script for collisions. Sorry. Player collisions. Here, we'll attach this to our player. Okay. So si collisions, we'll copy this for now, thus we'll change it later. So si collisions, I don't think we need this. So si collisions, we have these, and we also need the states, right? States for this. So we'll do states here as a reference, and then sa start, I forgot. We'll just copy start. We'll get a reference of states. Okay. Okay. So si dirt particle, ay comment out na lang siya, Anay. We'll also separate that no later, as well as the animator. Okay. So there will be a lot of changes here. Okay. We'll comment out lang, Anay, and then we will do these things now in other scripts. We'll also separate what will separate player effects. Okay, player particle effects. Create C sharp. So we do player particle effects. So we're separating this para easier siya later to work on. No, it looks scary because multiple scripts, but it is actually easier to manage later on because if you want to change particle effects, for example, you just look at particle effects script. If you want to edit the movement, then you're just going to go to the controller. So here, so particle effects will have the same thing, no, particle system, and then I'll have, oops, sorry, a public void play dirt sfx pfx like that particle effects. So this one we just do dirt particle effects dot play, and then for could also stop, right? Stop dirt. So this one is stop, and then we'll have one for the explosion. So sa explosion, wala naman siya gina-stop. This one is a one-time thing. Play explosion. Okay. Oh, okay. So start, well, we'll leave that there. We might use that later on. So we need a reference here as well. We do player particle effects, player PFX. This one will get the component here. Okay, like so. Sige lang. It looks bad right now, but we'll improve it later on. Okay, collisions. So sa collisions, so sa start here, we need particle effects man here, no? Sa collisions. Uh, particle effects. Sa collisions, so here we need, oh, what am I doing? Here. Tapos this one is also private. Player PFX. So this one, instead of dirt particles there, we do player PFX that, what was the name? Play dirt PFX. And then sa death, we do here. Play death, explosion, PFX there. Okay. What else do we want to change here? So we could remove ang collision here, right? So we're left with the death tumble, and then ang reset scene, we could transfer it to the collisions as well later. But for now, player SFX state animations. Okay, animations as well. So sa animations, ang jump trigger lang man, right? And the death, reset delay is assigned but never used. We'll fix those later. Player animator controller. This one, we need the, so we'll remove this. Right? So we could also, this stays, this one, we need this here. And then this one also to start. And then we'll do public, sorry, public, what was it? Play animations, play jump animation, and the public, this is void, sorry, void public animation. And then we also have death, right? Death animation. Public void death animation. This case, si player animator, when we jump, we just set trigger, right? Set trigger. This one is jump trig. And then for death, we do set bool. Right? Set bool. Player set bool. Set bool. This one is death B. And then true. Okay. So sa player controller, we'll do animator controller here. Do a reference of AC. We'll just do player AC for not too long. Okay. So instead of this, we do jump animation. Oops. Only assign call with, sorry, there. And then for the death, sa collisions to siya, no? Sige, later. So sa dirt particle here, let's clear PFX dot stop, what was it? Stop dirt. Okay, is on ground true. The tumble reset scene. Okay. So sa collisions, going back sa collisions, we want the SFX here as well. Sige lang. It's very messy right now, but we'll fix it later. Okay? Currently, very tightly coupled ang code but we'll fix it later. Okay? Where were we? Sa SFX is also in collisions, right? And then We will play the crash effects here. Effects invoke reset scene death particle. So we also need, this is done. So animator, okay, animator. We'll animate the death here. Set, no. Death animation. The death tumble is in player controller. Sa collisions, let's do player controller here. This one is player controller. So ang death tumble ta, we'll do this public. And then collisions. See this one, death tumble. Okay. And then si reset scene, direta na lang siya butang. Instead of here, butang ta na lang siya sa collisions. Okay. Reset delay is from here, right? Collision. Plus 3F. Okay. What else do we need sa collisions? Okay na siya? I feel okay. Tapos jump, play jump SFX, stop dirt. Tapos ang play dirt, I mentioned sa collisions, right? Did I put it there sa collisions? Play dirt, okay. States is okay, reset scene okay, particle PFX okay. So what remains here sa player controller is ang jump force, which is used for the jump. Rigid body should be here. And then we have the managers for sound effects, the states. Actually, I'll move states here para lang better. States, we have manager for sound effects, manager for particle effects, and manager for animator. We'll get the components here, and then sa jump, then we just do the jump animation, thus everything is here. Tapos sa death tumble is set to public so we can access it sa other script. Okay? And then sa player animator, this just is for the animation. So for jump animation, we just do set trigger, etc. For the particle effects, so we have death particle effects. So this is a new script. We have to supply this later with the appropriate particle effects. So sa collisions, we are also handling collisions here and some particle effects and sound effects, etc. Sa states is just the is on ground or is alive. So pwede ta ma-share si is on ground and is alive between the collisions here, right? Because we do set is on ground here and is alive. Ma-share ta siya kay player controller where it checks is on ground here and is alive. Okay, anyway. Let's go back to our inspector and check everything if working siya. Okay? So sa player, what have we here? Reset delay, that's fine. So we have death particle effects and death particle effects since the new script siya, we have to supply. So dirt splatter is the dirt particle and then explosion is the death particle. So if we play this now, it should still be fine, right? So it's still the same game, pero na-separate na ng components with its separate roles. Okay? It's kind of better, but it's still not good, right? Because our code right now is very, very tightly coupled. That is because, well, we need a reference to rigid body here. Rigid body is fine. We need a reference to our states. We need a reference to our sound effects manager. we need a reference to our particle effects manager, etc. And then if you look at collisions, may ara man siya here, no? May reference siya here, may reference siya there, may reference siya everywhere. So it's like your components are a web na may references siya with each other. And it gets very tangled and coupled na if you change something here, it might be possible that you're going to change something man sa other na script. So what we'll do is we'll get rid or we'll try to get rid of these coupling, no? And we'll make our code modular and more loosely coupled. Okay, so instead of references here, what we'll make do or what we'll use is events or actions. So I'm not, I don't know, if you're familiar with action listeners, I think sa web dev, no, there are action listeners. Like if you click a button, may listener siya in which listener will do something if the button is clicked. So we'll do something similar here. We will create actions and then there will be action listeners that are waiting for those actions to be performed. So when that action is performed, action listener will do something, right? We'll do that. We'll declare those actions. What we'll do is ang player states that this will be our common script, right? And all of our scripts, na player manager scripts, your movement manager, which is your controller, your particle effects, your sound effects, your animation, all of them will be linked sa kay player states. And then si player states will contain the actions and then ang listeners, well, mas-subscribe lang ang listeners from player states. That way, everything is connected to player states, but your player controller is not connected to your collisions directly. Maagi siya kay player states. Okay? So everything is like connected sa kay player states but not to each other. May ara siya layer of abstraction. Okay. What we'll do here is we'll create public actions. So public action. So anong events nga ginalantaw ta here, right? Or what events are we looking at sa game? Well, one event is when we press space, our character jumps, right? That's one event. Another event is when your player from the sky, when it jumps, it lands to the ground. That is the collision to the ground. And then another event is when our player bumps into an obstacle and then it dies, right? So essentially, we have those three events. So we'll make those actions here. So I'll say one action is player jump, like so. And then another action is player on ground or collides with ground. What's a good name? Collides with ground. That's player ground collision. Okay, that's shorter, still very long. This one will say player obstacle collision. Okay, what we'll do next is we will subscribe to these actions, right? So my actions na ta, what we'll do next is subscribe or like add a listener to these actions. So sa player controller, for example, ano ang actions kay player controller? For example, si Death Tumble, this should be subscribing whenever our player bumps into an obstacle, right? So for that, we'll do it here sa dalom. We'll do it here sa baba na lang. After start. Okay? We'll do here is we do have void, or is it private? Void on enable enable, sorry. And we also have on disable. On disable. Okay, so void, on enable, and on disable, these are inherited na methods from the mono behavior na object, right? So these are basically every script has on enable and on disable. So basically, if it's a component, you can enable it, you can disable it, right? So when the script is enabled, on enabled is called, and then when the script is disabled, on disable is called. We do this so that if we disable a script, then it's or when we enable a script, it starts subscribing to a certain action, and then when we disable a script, it does not subscribe anymore to that action. Okay? Because if you don't break the connection when it is disabled, there is still a chance that even if the script is disabled, ma-play siya gyapon ang action if it is still subscribed to that action. So here, we'll do states dot what was the action? Sorry. Uh, Obstacle collision, right? So when our object or our obstacle or our player collides with our obstacle, we'll do a death tumble, right? So how we do this is simply like this. Though ano lang siya, addition lang siya. It looks like addition where this is the action and then this is the function that is subscribed to that action. So plus equals lang siya. So we are saying that death tumble here is subscribed to the player obstacle collision action. So whenever player obstacle collision action is invoked or is activated, death tumble will also be notified na oh, I'll perform the action. So what we'll do sa on disable here is, okay, so see, we'll just remove the connection. No? We'll no longer subscribe to the on disable. Another thing we have to do here is we have to transfer getting states here as a component. We have to transfer it to awake. So void awake. Okay, so awake and start are somehow similar because it plays when the object is instantiated or when the script is created or played, right? So states here. The difference though is that awake runs before start. And the actual process or the actual execution of that is awake goes first and then on enable and then start, right? So if we do start here, we get states. States is not yet taken as a component because makuha kita sa start. So we need to get it before the script is enabled. Okay? We'll leave this here for now, pero we can delete that later. We'll clean that up later. So anyway, when our player obstacle collision happens, death tumble also occurs, right? Here. Let's do player animator controller. So similar thing, we'll copy, you know what, I'll cut this and then I'll put it here and then, okay. So I'll copy everything, this, sa butang ta siya sa animator controller, somewhere here. So this one doesn't know what states are. So kuha ta lang siya here, player states. And then we'll paste it here. Okay? So ano ang actions ta sa animator, right? Ano ang actions that we will subscribe to when we are in the animator? Well, when the player jumps and when the player dies. So here, when it collides to the obstacle, we'll do death animation and death animation here. We also need to subscribe to when the player jumps, right? So player jump plus equals jump animation. This. And then we'll just copy it here, but instead we do minus, right? Okay, on to the next one. So particle effects naman, we do, so this I think requires all three actions. Anyway, sige, I'll copy this. Okay, and then I'll paste it here. Animator's not needed, I'll remove it. Start. Okay. So states. So what do we do here? When the player jumps, we stop, right? We stop the particle effects. So stop particle effects. When the player collides with the obstacle, we play the explosion. And then when the player collides with the ground, states dot player ground collision we play dirt effects. Play dirt effects. There. Oh, what's this? Plus equals. Sorry. Okay. And then here, we'll do minus. Okay. So collisions, so states. Okay, I think that's it. We'll change now collisions. See collisions. Sige. So see collisions needs this one as well. I feel. Okay. You don't need the particle system here. You need states though, player states. It's already there. Sorry. So I'll remove this. Okay. So sa collisions, we don't really look for, or we won't really subscribe for actions here. What we'll do here sa collisions is here is we will where we will trigger the actions, right? I-play ang actions whenever something happens. Okay? So for example here, when you bump to the ground, you will invoke the action here, in which that is the states, sorry, delete ko siya. States dot, what was it? Player ground collision? Yes. We'll just say dot invoke there. So we are activating that action. So whenever we activate this action, every function or every method that is subscribed to this ground collision will also activate. So we don't really need to call play dirt effects here anymore, right? Because if we go back sa player particle effects here, nakasubscribe na siya, right? Nakasubscribe na siya whenever we bump to the ground, we play dirt effects. So we don't really have to explicitly put it here anymore. Okay? Same thing happens here. We will invoke, anong i-invoke to here? Player obstacle collision, right? So we invoke this. We don't really need to call it here anymore. See animation controller. Because if we go to animation controller, see death animation is already subscribed sa kay player obstacle collision. So we don't need to call this here. We also don't need to call this here kay subscribe naman si player controller, right? Si Death Tumble. This one, I'll keep it here. I'll keep it here for now. And then these two already subscribed as well, right? CSFX, I think we haven't changed it yet. Sorry. So CSFX, because we didn't change anything to SFX. Yeah, we'll do similar thing. States SFX, where are you? Here. Oops. That's okay. So animator not needed. Remove start here. So see states. So states. See jump, right? Jump happens when the player jumps. Okay. And then obstacle collision, we play the crash one shot. Okay. There, there, and there. Okay, so subscribe naman si player SFX. We'll go back to our collisions. So we don't have to do those two anymore. See play crash and play explosion, right? Si invoke will retain it here. Si invoke for now. Okay, and then we'll go back to our player controller and we'll see what can we change here. Okay, so we don't really call Death Tumble anymore outside, right? So we can just set this to private instead. And then we don't do this anymore still. Instead of this and this, the animation, since ang scripts nga to are subscribed sa action, we just call the action here. Okay? States dot player jump dot invoke. Oops. So we'll just trigger the action here. No other calls no to the other components since subscribed na sila from states. So since wala naman kita need for this, SFX, particle effects, and animation controller, we just remove this. Okay? So our start would just be getting the rigid body. And then sa player animation controller, We don't really need to do this public anymore since dire na lang siya sa class gina-use. So we could do private, or we could just do this private. And sa start, well, we don't really have a start. Start here is just getting the animator. That's okay. So particle effects, same thing. This will now be private. Okay. Oops. And then sa start, where wala makita sa start, so we'll just remove start. Okay. Player collisions. So sa player collisions, we don't need these. We just need the states, right? We actually don't need states here as well because we got that from sa awake. We don't need this. So I'll just remove start. Okay. And then for SFX, same thing. Naka-private. So we'll just do private, private. Okay. That's it, right? Again, animation controller, subscribe, unsubscribe. For collisions, we just trigger, right? Here, invoke action. For controller, we subscribe ang death tumble, and then we invoke the jump here. For particle effects, we subscribe all three functions in all three events. Sa SFX, we subscribe to sa jump lang and sa collision. As player states, this is just where we declare our public actions. Okay? Sige, let's save this and hope nothing breaks. Okay. Okay. So still, when we press jump, it's still the same thing. My jump animation and then my sound, right? So if we crash into something, still the same thing. So nothing changed with our game, pero ang aton nga scripts are more manageable, right? Because if we do collisions, then diri lang siya sa collisions. Then you trigger some action then, and then if you want more actions later, then you just add actions sa states, and then just subscribe and unsubscribe na lang, right? The good thing as well here is if we, for example, pause ko siya na. So si player, for example, i-off ko si player SFX, right? Nothing will happen. Sorry. So i-off ko si player SFX here for now. So disabled si script, meaning hindi na siya subscribe, right? Hindi na siya subscribe sa actions. Okay? So when we play this, if we jump, wala siya. If we enable the script again, may sound na siya, right? So you can test your scripts here, like enable, disable your scripts. So particle effects for now, it's not turning off anymore, right? Kung mag-jump ka, okay, hindi na siya subscribe sa action. If you enable it, then same behavior na siya. Yeah. So yeah. So we just cleaned up our code, separated each responsibility. Particle effects is just managed by one script. SFX is managed by one script. Collisions is managed by one script. And controls is also managed by another script. And then connected lang siya everything with player states. Like so. Okay? But yeah, for this Unit 3, actually what we discussed here today is not in Create with Code. So I'll just upload the video later on so you could follow along. I know it started a bit rough, no? Where we separated everything. Pero you would see that later on it's much more manageable if you do it like this. Okay? Any questions? Ano oras na? 2:01? Questions? Clarifications? Sige. If wala na questions and clarifications, I'll be releasing MP3 sa probably tomorrow. Tapos ang deadline niya is 2 weeks after that. MP3 would look like this. So similar siya. It's very similar to what we did here sa unit MA. Right? However, may added siya na functionalities. Like pwede ka mag-crouch. Right? Tapos may power-ups na siya. grenade. Yeah. Similar lang siya, pero may power-ups na siya. So the bomb explodes, tapos ma-clear siya sa obstacles. I'm waiting for the balloon. Slide, slide. Balloons not spawning. 23 will be something like this. No, 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 no. It's just double jump siya. So, space, while you're in the air, you press space again. And mo na siya. Or you could do just a double jump, normal double jump na siya again. But I did it differently. Anyway, but yeah. So that's what we'll be doing for the next 2 weeks.